onto Dover Road. Continue on Buckingham Avenue for 3/4 of a mile. In 300 yards, turn right onto Farnham Road, A355. Turn right onto Farnham Road, A355. Continue on Farnham Road for half a mile. In 1/4 of a mile, turn left onto Bath Road, A4. Take the next left onto Bath Road, A4. Continue on A4 for 1 mile.
talk to you this morning. Thank you for joining us. That's Andrei Kortunov. He's the Director General of the Russian International Affairs Council. Sir Mark Grant is a former UK ambassador to the UN and National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister until April 2017, and he joins me now. Sir Mark, very good morning to you. Where do you think we are on this, and what do you think Boris Johnson will be saying to Vladimir Putin, or what would you be advising him to say?
Well, I think we're still on something of a knife edge with 125,000 or so Russian troops on Ukraine's border, and Putin has a range of possible military options. But I don't think that a full-scale invasion is inevitable, and I think there's still scope for a degree of deterrence by NATO countries, including the threat of sanctions, etc., but also strengthening Ukraine through the supply of further weapons, training, support, etc., and also for diplomacy. And Boris Johnson's talk with Vladimir Putin this week is going to be about showing the resolve of all the NATO countries. So Putin's already spoken to President Biden, he's spoken to President Macron and others, and Boris's message, I think, will be a similar one to those two, saying that NATO is not threatening Russian security, it's a defensive alliance, and NATO is prepared to talk.
But he doesn't believe that, does he?
Well, he doesn't believe that, but I think the more people that explain to him that NATO is not going to be encroaching on Russian sovereignty, on Russian airspace, on Russian land, that it is purely defensive, and the fact that there are troops up in Eastern Europe in NATO countries is a legitimate...
In 300 yards, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Wellington Street, A4.
Some of the Russian concerns about European security, transparency, military exercises, the INF Treaty and all that sort of thing. But there are limits, and NATO is not prepared to compromise on the idea that any country can join NATO if it wishes to do so, and NATO has the right to put troops on its own territory wherever it likes.
And what about the point that Andrei Kortunov was making, that we did make a commitment in the early 1990s to Russia, the successor state to the Soviet Union, that NATO wouldn't be expanding towards the east?
Well, the reality is that we didn't make that commitment. This is a myth put about by Putin because he doesn't like what has happened, but no such commitment was ever made.
But he would say, well, if NATO is a defensive alliance, why would it want to expand?
Exit the roundabout onto Wellington Street.
Obviously, the three Baltic states are...
In a quarter of a mile, slight left towards Wellington Street, A4.
The last straw from his point of view.
Well, I don't think Ukraine is going to join any time soon, but the principle that they should be allowed to do so if they wish to do so for their own security is an absolutely fundamental one for NATO. The Baltic states wanted to join NATO because they themselves felt extremely threatened by Russia. They're very small countries. Russia's a very big country next door, and they felt that their security would be strengthened. Now, there's some European countries that haven't joined NATO. Finland, Sweden are two examples. But believe me, they'll be thinking about joining NATO if Russia takes some military action in Ukraine. And this is the third part of the message I think that Boris Johnson will be giving Putin, is that, look, if you do aggress against, if you...
Slight left towards Wellington Street, A4, then continue straight.
...response from your point of view, from the West, and that will include strengthening NATO, and more countries on Russia's border may well join NATO.
Sir Mark, thank you for joining us on Weekend Breakfast on LBC. That's Sir Mark Grant, former UK ambassador to the UN, National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister. Well, you've heard the arguments laid out. What do you think Boris Johnson should be saying to Vladimir Putin? And do you think this is a...
Continue straight, then slight left onto Wellington Street. Continue on A4 for 2 miles.
...to do with Britain? 0345 6060973. Coming up in a moment, we'll also get the latest on Storm Malik. It's 17 minutes past 7. News headlines with Simon English.
The Prime Minister and Chancellor have confirmed that the national insurance increase will go ahead as planned in April. Another storm is due to bring winds of up to 90 miles an hour to parts of the UK later, with warnings of more power cuts and disruption. British officials will be sent to Brussels in the coming days to discuss whether to send more troops to Eastern Europe over the Ukraine crisis. LBC weather, a bright start with storm force winds hitting the north of the UK later and a high of 8 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Cookie. The M1 is closed northbound because of an accident from Junction 8 to Junction 9 for Redbourne. There are delays on the approach. The M4 is closed in both directions. That's all weekend for works between Junction 6 for Slough and Junction 5 for Langley. In Falconwood, the A2 Eltham Tunnel is closed westbound. That's for recovery work to take place after an accident from the Falconwood interchange through to the South Circular. Now on the tubes, there are severe delays on the Central Line, and on the trains there is no service on the Gatwick Express between Victoria and Gatwick Airport.
Swarbrick on Sunday, coming up at 10, live from Westminster, LBC.
Just think, an office deep clean that helps protect your workplace for up to 28 days. That's Ice Shield from Ice Cleaning. Using electrostatic technology, Ice Shield is effective at protecting the workplace, giving peace of mind for a safer working environment for up to 28 days. Protect your team with Ice Shield from Ice Cleaning, the UK's cleaning experts. icecleaning.co.uk.
If someone has COVID-19, they breathe it out in particles. Particles that linger in the air like smoke. But 1 in 3 people who have the virus have no symptoms and could be breathing it onto others without knowing. So when you go out, wear a face covering in enclosed busy spaces to help reduce the amount of COVID-19 particles in the air. Stop COVID-19 hanging around.
This is what Monday feels like when you find a great new job at read.co.uk. Fluffy, adorable, majestic. So cute you just want to give a little scratch under the chinny chin chin. Oh, I never knew Monday could be so sweet. Love Mondays again. Find a job that'll get you purring at read.co.uk.
I've watched you drive too fast, just because we're a bit late.
I've seen you driving too close to the car ahead when we're on the way to school.
I've noticed when you try and make the lights, even when they're amber.
I thought you go too fast, so I get pushed back in the seat.
And I've seen you slam on the brakes to avoid hitting someone.
Dad! Watch your speed. Everyone else does.
To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Wiping away all the gun cam, the grime galore.
Bottoms, two faces, bathtubs and so much more.
What to do next with the wipes? Don't ignore the bin, cause it's just over there. Oh dear, who stunk out our lovely street?
If it's not Luro, it's not for the lavatory.
Bag it and bin it, and it will be history. Properly out of our hand. Bin it, don't block it. Thank you from Thames Water.
Ian Dale on LBC.
7:20. David in Addlestone says we should not...
In 300 yards, at Langley roundabout, take the first exit onto the M4 slip road to M25 London.
Troops. Now, the problem with that is, of course, Russia is on the Security Council of the UN and can veto any UN action. So maybe you knew that before you texted that, David, but that's not going to happen because Russia just has an outright veto. Now, I was asking you to text in. You can do this right throughout the programme without saying your age. Text me something a young person today wouldn't understand. We've got quite a selection here. I'll just read a few of them out.
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road.
Someone enough to give them your last Rolo. Blank looks through the glass there. Ray says,
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
would you watch out if there was a Humphrey about? I actually don't understand that either, so I think I'm feeling quite young this morning. I'm off to Woolies on Saturday. Yep, they get that. Yeah, Woolworths. Graham in Bradford says, fancy a game of Pong on my Atari? No? How much is a marathon bar? Marathon used to be the one, it used to be Snickers basically. I don't know why they changed it. They changed all the names.
Continue on M4 for 5 miles.
What is it Starburst, isn't it? I don't know why they did that either. Anyway, we'll read out some more of those later in the programme. So, let's take a call on Ukraine, 0345 6060973. If you want to tell me what you think Boris Johnson should be saying to Vladimir Putin, and indeed to Eastern European leaders when he visits the area later in the week. Alex is in Brentwood. Hello, Alex.
Hi, good morning. I think we've got a high cost to pay here if we get involved. Basically, the Americans have always been jealous of the City of London. It's the major world financial centre, and now they've put off on Russian money. So that's going to make the property market unstable, and eventually the Chinese will start thinking, maybe we won't want to put our money over here. You know what I mean? And if gas gets turned up, how many pensioners will be there? It's not so easy to...
Well, we actually don't buy Russian gas. That would be a question for the German government, because obviously a lot of their energy supplies come from Russia. And you would have thought they might have thought about this before they became so dependent on Russia, but it really would be Germany and one or two other EU countries that would be severely affected by that. We would be affected in the sense that gas prices would rise inexorably, even more than they are at the moment.
Yeah, and also the Biden family personally have been taking payments and money from this scene with the Ukrainian gas company. I mean, it's not that's too much close involvement. There's a word for it. I can't remember the term now, but you know, there's no
conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's ludicrous. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we have to see our situation for our country and our people, and particularly our financial markets. They're very important, especially if we're just starting to bounce back, you know.
So in your view, any gains that would be got for this country by involving ourselves in this would be outweighed by some of the negatives?
Well, yeah, we're the ones who are going to suffer. The Yanks couldn't care less about us. I mean, and like I say, they're very jealous of what we have in this country, in the City of London. You know, they're very jealous, and they'd love to actually sort of get all of it.
Isn't it an embarrassment to this country that so much Russian money is effectively laundered through the City of London?
Yeah, but is it laundered? It's invested in this country. I mean, because we're stable. We've never had a proper revolution. You know, I mean, the Russians, 100 years ago had a revolution? So, you know, I mean, even the people in charge now, even though technically they're not really communists anymore, you know, they still appreciate stability of London, the UK.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much indeed. Well, of course, that story features on the front pages of one or two Sunday newspapers. In fact, the Sunday newspapers today have a plethora of different stories on the front pages. Let's run through a few of them now. The Sunday Express, they have got Ukraine on the front page. PM's defiant message to hostile Putin. The Daily Star has a classy front page. Chucky doll is trying to kill me. She cries acid and catches fire. Who knew? Sunday People, don't let Monster Mum go free. And the Sunday Mirror, Rylan, Gimme the Gear, Troubled Clark is filmed on Night Out. Make of that what you will. The Observer, Tories accused of levelling up stunt to save Johnson's job. That's of course the white paper that Michael Gove will be issuing later this week on levelling up.
In 2 miles, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Royal Gardener, woman shaken by tree row. Meltdown days after writ. Don't you love some front pages? And the Sunday Times, Sunak wins tug of war over Tory tax hike. Now we're going to be talking about this after 8. Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson have written a joint article for the Sunday Times when they make clear that the national insurance rise is going to go ahead in April. At the Mail on Sunday, they're back to Michael Gove. Gove's Red Wall Revolution to rescue Boris, and Strictly in Love, Nadia and Kai show they really are an item. That's nice. And the Sunday Telegraph, PM's aide watched cricket as Kabul fell. This is Dan Rosenfeld, the Chief of Staff to Boris Johnson, who was apparently watching a cricket match at Lord's when Kabul fell. But the detail is that it was 3 days before Kabul fell. Interesting story in the Sunday Telegraph. Now, also big in the papers today, the effects of Storm Malik, and that's hitting northern parts of the UK. You may have experienced it. You may be experiencing it. Sarah Thornton is meteorologist at weathertrending.com and joins us now. Sarah, very good morning to you. Just take us through the effect so far of Storm Malik, and have we seen the worst?
We have haven't, because we actually have back-to-back storms this weekend. So we've had Malik, which was named by our counterparts in the Danish Met Service. That came through yesterday. We've got a brief temporary respite, a chance to catch our breath this morning, before almost the same areas will be hit this evening by Storm Corrie, which has been named by the UK Met Service. So
my producer is called Corrie. I don't know if it's named after him, but I mean, he's a bit of a whirlwind.
I've also seen a few Coronation Street memes going around about widespread gales. And you have to be a Corrie fan to understand that as well. I tweeted one, I must admit. Anyway,
in a quarter of a mile at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Sadly, a couple of deaths attributed as well to Storm Malik as that came through, one in Staffordshire and one in Aberdeenshire. Of course, falling trees always a big issue with these storms as they come through, very weak as well. If you've had a lot of rain, the root systems and some of the trees...
Exit at junction 3.
And it can be easy for them to come through, come down when you get some really strong winds. So we had wind gusts at lower levels yesterday at around the sort of low 80 mile an hour.
In a quarter of a mile at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the 4th exit onto the Parkway, A312.
Overnight to the start of things tomorrow morning, an area of low pressure, again same track coming to the northwest of the UK, skirting its way off towards the east, towards Europe, and it's the Outer Hebrides, I think, that are going to see the very, very worst of those winds as they come through. So something like maybe even locally 90 to 100 miles an hour at lower levels. Very, very localized, that sort of winds, more typically 80 miles an hour, but yeah, another second blow. And of course, we all think back to Storm Arwen. That was at the end of November, if you remember. 100,000 people without power for quite a long period of time, and a couple of deaths again attributed to that. Now, the thing about Arwen that I really want to stress is that was a very unusual wind direction with that strength. That was a true northerly, and that's why it was really impactful. This is going to be a slightly more typical, although still quite ferocious winter storm.
Now, idiot question of the morning.
Yeah.
It'll be one of many that I ask guests in this 3 hours, but idiot question of the morning is, what causes storms like this?
So it's an area of low pressure, a deep depression is what we call it, and as the pressure plummets, what you get is, if you can picture us on television with our weather maps, you get those white lines. The more lines you have packed together, which we call the isobars, the more tightly squeezed together they are, the more likely you are to see very, very strong winds. It's as the pressure's trying to right itself, that's when you get that gushing of air.
I think I understand that. Sarah, thank you very much indeed for educating us. That's Sarah Thornton, a meteorologist at weathertrending.com. 0345
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway.
Call on Ukraine. Your views on what Britain should be doing as part of the international effort to persuade President Putin.
Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile.
0345 6060 973. Let's get the latest news headlines on Weekend Breakfast. Simon English is here and it's 7:30.
The planned £12 billion increase in national insurance will go ahead in April, despite concerns about the rising cost of living. The Prime Minister and Chancellor say it's the right plan to tackle NHS backlogs. Boris Johnson's considering doubling the number of UK troops stationed at Europe's borders over fears about a Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Prime Minister says his offer will send a clear message to the Kremlin. More potentially dangerous weather is on the way to the UK after Storm Malik left 2 people dead and thousands without electricity. Falling trees killed a woman in Aberdeen and a 9-year-old boy in Staffordshire. Starting dry, bright and frosty this morning, clouding over in the north and west with some rain. Storm force winds will hit northwest Scotland later and a high of 8 degrees today.
LBC.
I'm Camilla Tominey, here on LBC. Aren't Harry and Meghan now basically just A-list celebrities? And should they be treated any differently when they come back to the UK? When you consider it was his choice to go out and live in California? I mean, ultimately, you make that decision, you have to make sacrifices. Join me, Camilla Tominey.
In a quarter of a mile at Wagoners Roundabout, take the 2nd exit and stay on the Parkway, A312.
Save yourself a trip. So why not enjoy the time saved with some breathing exercises? Breathe in and out. In and out. Or you could just have a lovely cuppa. Tesco has price matched hundreds of products you love. Tesco. Every little helps. Comparable products shopped in GBLD stores and or online twice weekly. Price most often found match pro rata, excluding promotions, may vary by week and by store. Excludes Express and Northern Ireland. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway. Continue on A312 for 1.5 miles.
Read.co.uk. Fluffy, adorable, majestic. So cute you just want to give it a little scratch on a job that'll get you purring at read.co.uk.
It's estimated that 1 in 10 children will experience sexual abuse before they turn 16. That's equivalent to 3 in every classroom. Most children won't tell anyone at the time. But there are signs to look out for. Has your child become more withdrawn or started acting differently? They could be trying to tell you something's wrong. To learn more about the signs and find further support, visit stopabusetogether.campaign.gov.uk.
I've watched you drive too fast, just because we're a bit late.
I've seen you driving too close to the car ahead when we're on the way to school.
I've noticed when you try and make the lights, even when they're amber.
I thought you go too fast, so I get pushed back in the seat.
And I've seen you slam on the brakes to avoid hitting someone.
Dad! Watch your speed. Everyone else does.
To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
It's the TalkTalk Winter Warmer Sale, with deals hotter than a steaming cup of cocoa. Like our super fast, reliable fibre broadband, now from just £22 a month for 24 months. With average speeds from 38 to 145 megabits per second. And award-winning customer experience. Brilliant. Deals that make sense. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Offers end 16th Feb. TalkTalk for everyone. CPI plus 3.7% annual increase from April 2022, subject to availability, £9.95 post and packing, T's and C's apply.
Ian Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
It's 7:33 on LBC. We're talking about Ukraine. This is quite an important week coming up, I think, in this area. And one thing I should mention, somebody's just said thank you for your All Talk podcast on the history of Ukraine. If you were listening to my evening show, about 10 days ago, we had a call from Tom in Brighton, who is an